Welcome back to the podcast. I have a very juicy episode for you today. I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on sharing the how and how that actually leads to sales. I know this is a huge debate. I know for me, it's been a huge debate, at least since I started my business. I would always hear, you must not share the how. If you want to get sales, people won't see the value. You have to share the what and the why. And there is some partial truth to that, but overall, that is not actually how I approach my business. I am very big on giving value, and that always leads to more sales. It has been such a big component in my business growth overall as well. And I actually want to talk about why that is and kind of just clear the air here, because I think the reason why it doesn't work for people in the way that they think it should is because they just don't understand it as a whole. And I just really want to clear the air and really help you see the path of why it works. I think for us, a lot of the times when you start your Instagram account, you feel like you don't really know where to go, you don't really know what to post and why it's gonna work. And I think the most valuable asset here in this, at least in this episode, is to understand why it works, so you feel a lot more clear on the path ahead and you know how to implement it for actual maximizing sales in your business. So I wanna start out by talking about why me sharing my best advice has led to the best sales in my business. When I say best sales, I'm saying the best clients, the best people in working with me have always bought because they already have felt this immense trust and a lot more educated as well. So when somebody's a lot more educated, they're a lot more likely to be a better client and also just to be somebody who wants to work with you in the first place. And that is a huge reason why sharing the how is actually what leads to sales. But there's a couple more things that I want to go into detail here on why that is. So something I want to bring up, if you think about creators on YouTube, right? This is a really, really good example. The thing that creators on YouTube do is a lot of them, they don't have like a product to sell or like a program or anything like that. Their whole entire business model is built on giving you very good videos and just being the best at that, right? There's so many videos out there. I could go look up in every single one of our industries out there and find information. So that's the first thing to think about is what's stopping me from going to find a full-on workout routine, which I absolutely can for free on the internet, versus you, right? I think that's something I want you to think about. If I can already go do that, and then you're gonna be someone who's like, I can't give that value because you think that is literally why people are paying you, then you definitely have another thing coming. Now, I do understand that need to feel like maybe you put a lot of work inside of your program, or you have a lot that you really like to keep for your clients, and you can absolutely keep that for your clients. But I also want you to know there's like absolutely no way for someone to really feel the value of your actual program through your content, no matter how much value you give. Also, there's nothing that's going to replace that personalized one-to-one aspect. And I know that was something I heard 1,000 times as well, but it still didn't register of like, okay, but how, why does this lead to sales? So kind of going back off that story, think about those the successful YouTube creators. Their whole entire business model is creating value content, and they don't have an actual offer, so they don't have to worry about if they're giving too much. And there's something I want you to take from that, right? Because I was watching this fitness account the other day on like eating healthy, and he literally gave me everything that I needed almost. He broke down the studies, he gave me, and then after he broke down that, he sold me on the whole concept. Then he told me what to eat and gave me examples. He literally wrote down my life plan from that. And I felt like I left that video knowing what to do. I felt so good. I felt like energized, excited, because I understood the full concept of what to do. And I feel like I had something, right? Which is what I was looking for in the first place. I start off that way where you're not looking, and not like there's people who are looking for coaches, don't get me wrong. But not everyone's looking for that all the time. They might just be looking for free stuff. And that's a huge reason why this works for people that are looking for coaches or aren't, like in both avenues. It really does. So I noticed after that video, I was like, wow, I would really love like a full-on workout plan. It'd be cool if he could actually help me. And I started thinking, dang, you can see how now that I'm more educated, I know more of what to do. I'm somebody who's going to be so much more likely to want the rest of it, like to actually invest, because now I already know things. I'm not coming at it like, oh, I just want you to help me make more money. And then I have to start at ground zero with clients and be like, okay, well, we gotta do this. We gotta make a personal brand. We gotta do reels. And if they're already like, I don't know how to do that, what are you talking about? I'm gonna be like, whoa, like I need you to be way more educated. Not that you have to know everything. Absolutely not. And obviously my program will help educate you. That's why it's there. It will help to really just make it a lot more seamless and more clear and really put things together in like a very seamless timeline. But overall, when someone comes to me and they already get that concept, especially when they've already been doing it themselves, right? They just need me to fill in the blanks. They need me to look at it. They need me to write out the action plan for them. They need me to see what they're missing from an outside perspective. And that is why people pay me, because they want my perspective. They value that, especially because I was the first person, or maybe one of their top people that they liked learning from in the first place, and they feel that much more inherently ready to buy. And this is why I love this business model. There's not like a one size fits all. There might be someone who has a completely different take on this, and that is fine. But the way I want to run my business, the way I desire, is going to be based on me loving creating content and finding people that way. I would rather put more effort in maximizing my visibility, being the go-to content creator in my space, than maybe putting out subpar content. And you don't have to have like this amazing content you post every day. You really shouldn't, right? But overall, I want to be that go-to, and I would much rather put my energy in that avenue. Because when I go sell in my stories, for example, if you heard my episode from last week where I talked about what did I talk about? I talked about building trust. And that is where I actually like broke down exactly why building trust is such an essential part of my business model, and how it actually makes selling easier. Like I can go to my stories, and what I said was I had 5 people message me from 50 story views about a high level mastermind from 50 story views at the time. So that goes to show you building trust. I highly recommend you go listen to that episode, and you can kind of get more in depth of how to build trust, how to do all of that. But essentially, I desire this business model because now I can go and sell my stories. And it's not that it's like minimal effort, but it isn't as much effort. It's actually fairly simple with this business model because people are already behind my message. They already know me, they already like me and trust me. So I can actually go and be a lot more direct with selling without having to twist and turn and make my messaging so perfect, because I already did all of it. Like I've already spent the time. Why would you spend so much time with your content, then go sell and feel like you have to start over and create a new, completely different strategy based off that? No, basically how I approach it is everything I do leads to a sale. Like it's all the part of selling. Even if it's not even a call to action to sell, everything is part of it, And I don't look at it as everything I have to do has to be that way. Like I genuinely enjoy making these episodes. I do things that I actually want to do for myself because that's what's going to keep me, grounded, going to keep me consistent. But, overall, that's just the way I desire to run my business. I want it to be simple and I want to enjoy it. And so this just makes way, way too much sense to me. And it has since the beginning, because I always noticed a pattern in myself too. When I would invest in other coaches, I always learned or had tremendous breakthrough value, whatever, from them. Maybe I downloaded their stuff. Maybe I skimmed or binged their podcast episodes. There was always something like that had to happen for me to be okay, because I am somebody who needs to know the full breakdown of how they're going to help me. Yes, a sales page can totally do that, but not in the way that builds trust. The sales page can maybe confirm the sale, right? Or maybe the way you sell and your call to action can confirm, okay, this is what I'm gonna get, or maybe a DM conversation, that absolutely. But when you already are telling people how you work, your process, what you believe, what you don't believe, I'm already piecing that together, and that's a huge part of telling the story of your offer in itself, right? Then I can go sell based off of those key elements, okay? One thing to be said here is people actually started to work with me or asked to work with me. Like this is a point in 2022. They started asking to work with me at the beginning of that year before I really had an offer. I had just kind of got off of a one-to-one program. I didn't love how I ran that. It went well in a lot of other aspects. I filled most of my spots, which I was pleasantly surprised, but I knew I did not like my program. I wanted to fix it. There was so much I wanted to change, and I wanted to really make a business model that was suitable, exciting for me to show up with. So there's a lot of things and moving parts there. So at the time I kind of stopped that program and I wanted to create a new one, right? And so I had nothing. All I had was a 90-minute offer to kind of get me by. It was not, I don't recommend that. And I actually started to build a lot of interest in just the way I was showing up, like just the way I was giving value, the way I was sharing, expressing my thoughts, opinions. People started to reach out. And I would say half of people reached out and half of the people maybe responded to call to action of like, oh, hey, I have something coming, DM me if you're interested. And other people reached out literally on their own for my help as a coach, because I was literally just being me. I was literally building a brand. And when you can do that, the offer is irrelevant, right? I mean, of course, you got to put effort into your offer. You got to make it good. You got to make sure it's really going to help people where they're at. A lot of that does come with confidence too, and knowing that you're going to help them. You're going to do what you can to help them. And you know that you're constantly improving and adapting. But the point here is, wow, oh my gosh, people started to reach out. People are interested because I'm building a brand. I'm building something more than selling an offer. That's what clicked for me. And I was like, okay, this is where I need to go. This is where I need to focus, right? And it actually, to me, it made so much more sense. It clicked more. It was a light bulb moment. It was like, yeah, this is exactly what I should be focusing on. Because when I'm trying to think about tailoring everything to my offer, trying to say the right thing, messaging, then it starts to be so freaking overwhelming that it's like, why I don't even want to do that anymore. Like, so I just like to make things very simple. And that's why it just makes so much sense. So essentially, I'll kind of go on with some tips on exactly, what you could do to actually make that profitable, how to actually give the how and to, get sales back. Something I do want to mention is I'm actually hosting next week a free training. I was going to charge for it, but now I'm making it free until after I record it live. It's going to be $19 after the fact, but if you sign up now, it's free. And basically, I'm actually going to break down this whole process of how I nurture for sales and how it has been such a big, huge, groundbreaking decision in my business to go in and to build this community around that. So in that masterclass is basically what I'm going to be breaking down. I'm going to be explaining exactly how to share the how in a way that actually leads to high ticket sales, so you can really just clear the air here in full and know exactly what to do. And if that is something you're interested in, if you like that business model too, I would absolutely recommend you go and you sign up for that. The link will be in the show notes. So let's get into exactly what I would do or what I'd focus on in terms of, sharing the how and how that leads to sales. So number one, when you give more info, it actually causes this brain reaction to your audience where they are now like, oh, that's what I need to focus on. Like there's something that happens when, like, let's say you create a very valuable packed carousel and you're like, this is 4 steps to XYZ. And I'll kind of give an example in a second here. But essentially what you're doing there is you're immediately triggering this response of, oh wow, this is possible for me if I follow these steps, and these steps make way too much sense. And I feel a lot more certainty of where to go, how to do it. Let me follow this person. Let me keep watching what they have to say, right? So you start to build this trust because you're giving them the pieces of the puzzle essentially, and that makes them feel a lot closer to the reality of where they want to go. And you're not just out here being like, this is why you're not doing this. This is the problems you're having, versus making clear as day of how you actually help them. And this really inspires action. This is a big piece of content for me, honestly. So when imagine that piece of content you created is super valuable, right? And now they're going to start wanting your results. They're going to start to look at that as their pathway to getting results, especially if you're the one to present it. Now, this is where people kind of might trip up because there's a lot of people in your niche that you might be feeling like you're competing for attention with, right? And I want you to know that no one is going to explain something like you. No one is going to be able to explain it based off of your own results like you. So that's a huge, huge part of this content piece for me is I do tie it into either how I explain it or just my own literal results that I can play back on so that people can still piece me and see me as a part of it versus just being like, here's 3 ways to get more sales. Step 1, go to your explore. Like, no, like that's not, I'm not feeling connected to you at all in that way. So in this sense, I'm going to still like instill like my strategy of what I would do to get certain results. And I'm going to either explain it in a certain way, kind of like this episode. I'm essentially giving you like a different way of thinking. And there's probably other people who go on and talk about the same exact thing, but I'm explaining it differently, right? Or I might explain, like, for example, I've even given you examples of my own process, why this has worked for me. And that's another selling point, right? So that kind of bleeds into number 2 here, where you do want a mixture of how to and why content. So what I mean is how to content, like literally breaking things down. And what I would do is actually give them like maybe more specific examples. You don't always have to be like how to, and then give them your full-on 6-figure strategy if you're a business coach, or your full-on how to build your, you don't have to jam pack everything essentially in one post. So I always like to give people little like small specific wins. Like I'm going to explain exactly how I would format an Instagram live for sales, right? And so all I'm doing is focusing on that. There's so much more to the puzzle, but if somebody can walk away with an aha moment, excited, they're going to feel more excited to take action on that step, especially if that is a part of like a piece of component of how I help people make sales, right? Like if live is how I help build trust and all of that, then I'm going to give them a valuable packed, piece of content where I help you them with that exact same thing. Now, on the other hand, the other component is why content. And honestly, a lot of times my how-to content, not even purposefully at times, is more of the why. So it's like, or like the what and the why. So if I'm going to say, hey, this is how you can attract more dream clients to your account with your content, I'm going to tell them like maybe 3 things to focus on, right? And that might be more of, I want you to focus on creating super like juicy how-to content, right? And then I can explain why that works. And right then and there, they feel like they know where to start. Of course, there's so much more they need to learn about like how to create how-to content, like how that actually, like what to actually do that might not give. And some people might not even need that and might be like, oh, that clicked for me. That's all I need. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. But essentially, when people can understand why and you can sell them on your why, that's another component to this that actually helps serve hand in hand with your how-to content. So just for a sake of clarity, a more example here, because I want to make sure this is super clear as day for you. But basically, if I'm going to share how-to content, like like my example before, how to make a live that attracts a high-ticket client today. This is exactly how I would format my live, Instagram live, or something like that. And then I might also make a post on why you need to go live. Or another thing is, I might, like a huge thing I talk about all the time is, this is why I create content that sells for me, or why I focus on giving value and not selling. And I'm gonna pretty much like sell people on the whole idea and concept behind my strategy of why I do it that way. And the results has led me, and the aha moments, like how much better my business model is. And so now I'm selling them on that component, as well as giving them value at the same time. So they're getting these breakthroughs, they're getting excited about the potential. And that is why how-to content and how you can make how-to content just blow up, like just do so well for you. Essentially too, like there is not, I could go on and on and on about this, but there is not enough that you could share that would make somebody be like, oh, I have it all, we're good, right? Like, even with this episode, I don't have a strategy where I'm like, let me withhold something so that they're wanting more. No, I'm like, let me explain this in the best way I can. The end. So there's some strategy involved, especially when I sell, and that's a huge part of it. But for the sake of this episode, it is very much on that factor of I'm just here to give people a dang good show to help them see the potential of what they need and why. Maybe even give them some wins. And that is how I move the needle. That is how people turn into these fans that want to buy from you, that see that and want to be like, oh my gosh, yes, this is so important. This is something I want. This is the path I want to follow. I'm sold on this. And you're the person who showed it to me, and you're the person getting results from it. So you're the person I want to work with. That is literally as simple as it gets, right? Number 3, the last part and component of this is value is more like than a how-to step-by-step. You are more valuable than just what you can educate people on. You don't always have to have the teacher hat on. Okay? How-to is very good, very, very good for visibility, recognition, stopping people in their track. Like, imagine if you got something so good and obviously it's going to get their attention because nobody else is doing that. Or maybe they're not getting as much value. My thought is, if my free stuff is better than their paid stuff, then we're winning already. That's what stands out in this industry. However, a lot of people find a lot of value more so in your opinions, or more so in maybe you inspiring action with your story, right? I feel like there's so much value when someone can break down a before and after. I feel so much more enlightened of like, maybe my thoughts were validated, right? Maybe I feel like whatever I was struggling with, I see myself in that person. I feel validated by that, and that's super valuable. Maybe it's an opinion that you hold, and that really helps to kind of clear the air in terms of something you're stuck on, and you can share your value there. It doesn't have to be this whole 1, 2, 3 and like vigorous how-to process every time, and it shouldn't be that every time. People can find so much value in the most basic, like, took me 5 minutes to write that piece of content as well. And that's actually happened to me, where I just want to make a point. I know, for example, there was one piece of content that I made where I said, this is why you're not getting the results you want, or something to that extent. I can't remember exactly what I said, but my point in that post, it was like 2 carousel slides. That's it. The second slide was, you don't believe your results are big enough, read caption. And that was my point there, because I felt like at the time I was seeing that happen a lot, where people they didn't want to sell their transformation. They didn't want to sell results because they didn't feel like it was big or good enough. So they would hide away from that. And that was actually self-sabotaging them. And that was super valuable to people, because I wasn't like going in and doing exactly how to do this, what to do, right? So that's another thing I want you to kind of hold on to. And I think it's why you can't just have one form of content and that's like your saving grace. So definitely take that with a grain of salt in that sense. I'd be curious to know your opinions, because everybody has their own thoughts and opinions on this. I'm very, very strong in this belief, because I've already seen such magic happen with when I share the how, when I give more, it always comes back to me in that way. And especially if, like, that's also how I approach launching, how I approach growing my account, is whenever you're really trying to build this brand, that is such a huge part that you want to do. You want to be educating on essentially what you would be giving in your program, because that's what's going to get people behind your message, and that's what's going to get people to want to learn from you and be a lot more educated and more ready to take that next step with you. Okay? If you found any value in this episode, it would just mean so much to me if you could give me a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, whatever you're listening to. That always helps me out. It really just helps me know if you're actually enjoying the episodes or not. Otherwise, I also appreciate if you just want to send me a DM and let me know how you enjoyed the episode as well. If you had any breakthroughs, what your opinions are on sharing the how. It's always fun to hear, your thoughts and takeaways as well. Other than that, that is the end of this episode. I will see you in the next episode.